Good morning, everyone. It feels a little conference-y. And since this talk is about human connection, I was hoping that we could take a second to break the ice. So, please turn to somebody that you don't know. It can be in front of you, behind you, to the side of you. Introduce yourself, tell them where you're from, and then give them a double high five as we go, pop, pop. Begin. All right. Thank you guys for doing that. Loosening up the room a little bit. Okay. Thank you guys for being here. I know it's a little bit chilly. So my name is Jesse Israel. I am the founder of the Big Quiet Medi Club. We are a community of thousands of young New Yorkers. We come together regularly to meditate, have meaningful conversations, and explore purpose in our lives. I am obsessed with community building and with social movements. I was asked to speak about the future of human connection today. So to do that, I'm going to take about the first 10 minutes or so of my talk to tell you my story. I'm going to speak a little bit to some of my successes and also a little bit to some of my challenges. And then I'll point to the future of human connection and how I think you guys can play a role in that future. When the talk ends, we're going to have a big quiet mass meditation, which is something that you'll learn about in my talk that we do in New York. We've got sound bowls and gongs. The incredible Simona and Guy from Sound Meditation SF will guide us through that. So, to get us started, this is me in 8th grade, also known as grade 69. And my story starts here. I didn't know it at the time, but on 8th grade retreat, I led my first purpose-driven experience. The teachers separated the boys from the girls in 2 different cabins, and at 2 a.m., I rallied my fellow boy students on a covert mission to sneak into the girls' cabin. And it worked. The girls freaked out, and I was awarded a badge of honor, which was 1 year of behavior probation. And it was so worthwhile because there was this sense of camaraderie between my fellow boy students and I that we had earned through this shared accomplishment of breaking the rules. Now, as a quick side note, when I was in 9th grade, they gave me a 2nd year of behavior probation for no reason, which I was always very indignant about until I was putting this together. I found my 9th grade ID, and it started to make more sense. So about 7 years later, I found a more useful way to bring people together. This is a college band at the time called MGMT. This is them playing an awkward show in front of about 20 other students. And my college roommate and I, we were sophomores, we were 20 years old, signed MGMT. We made a little dorm room record label. And a few years later, these guys were playing shows in front of 90,000 people. So this was the second important moment of connection for me. I actually wasn't on stage, even though we signed the band, they wouldn't let us. I was in the audience, and there was this moment, I still remember it sent chills through my body, where 90,000 strangers were united through music, in unison, singing the lyrics to the song Kids. It was unlike anything I had experienced before. So I went on and I worked in the music industry for several years. But on the side, I still felt very drawn to bringing people together in unique ways. So I did an experiment. It was called the Burger Boys. And this is our first meeting. It was 10 of my best buddies and I. We came together on a Sunday. We got cheeseburgers for lunch. And we decided that we would start a club. And for the next 2 years, every other week, we would have a different cheeseburger in the different boroughs of New York. It's a little bit dark, but we had Burger Boys gear. And while we were coming together to have cheeseburgers and drink beer, what was happening behind that was men's group. It was essentially therapy and support sessions for guys in their 20s trying to make sense of what it means to grow up in this world. There was laughter, there was tears. It was the most important thing to me in my life at the time because I felt supported. We actually grew the Burger Boys, and we had chapters in other cities. This is the Burger Boys of Stockholm. A random person got our logo tattooed on their elbow. So something was working there. It was also right around this time where the Burger Boys in New York disbanded, and guys moved to different areas. And it was this time in my life when I also started to bug out a little bit about the work that I was doing. I was starting to feel disconnected to working in the music industry. And I started to get hit with pretty serious anxiety. I was questioning what my life would look like if I left the business and the industry that had sort of defined me for so many years. And the thought of it started to give me panic attacks. So I was in my early to mid-20s at the time, and to cope with the stress, I found meditation. And in a relatively short period of time, once I had a regular practice going, I found that my stress was starting to reduce, and I was able to start to lean into some of my fears. Before, I was too anxious to speak in front of more than 10 people eating cheeseburgers, but with the meditation practice, I started feeling grounded enough to start to bring people together on a larger scale, which is really what I felt called to doing. So I did my next experiment with a bunch of friends. It's called the Cyclones. So the first 18 Cyclones, we got together, we decided we would start a bike club. By the end of the summer, we had hundreds of people coming on our rides, and we would take over the streets. And it was really special. People were falling in love. They were starting businesses. They were supporting each other. Friendships were born. And when I was organizing the Cyclones, I felt something there, this sense of community and fulfillment that I'd never really felt before. And I was about 3 years into my meditation practice at this point, and I knew that what I wanted to be doing for a living was this kind of work. I wanted to feel what was happening there. So I took a leap into the unknown. I left the music industry, the company that I had been running for 9 years. And I had no idea what was next, but I felt committed to exploring my truth and looking into really what filled me up, what was my purpose in life. And when I first left the company, it was pretty incredible. It was elating. I followed my heart, and there was something so exciting about the unknown. And then come wintertime, I started to get hit with fear. The thought of what I was going to do about money. I went into these deep comparison patterns where I was looking at my friends. I was watching them fall in love on social media. I was seeing the successes of my peers on Instagram. And I went to this place of questioning my worth. And it was the most lonely and isolating experience in my life. And I'd put myself there. Our burger club was disbanded. It was too cold to ride bikes. And I felt alone. I really felt like what I needed was community. So this was about 2 years ago or so. I decided I would do my next experiment. And that was to bring together my love of bringing people together and blend it with my appreciation for meditation. So Medi Club was born. And Medi Club was this gathering that happened in my buddy's apartment in downtown Manhattan. A group of us that I knew from the music industry and the tech industry and the places that I would go out and party at night in New York all came together sort of awkwardly to share 20 minutes of quiet. We had a meditation, and when the meditation finished, I decided that I would speak up a little bit about the challenges that I was going through, feeling committed to find more fulfillment in my life, but not really knowing how to find it, the loneliness, some of the fear and the comparison, like I mentioned earlier. And something really powerful happened in that moment. Someone else in the room spoke up and said that they felt the same way. And then a few other people spoke up and said that they were going through the same shit as well. And an hour and a half later, a bunch of strangers had just talked about their challenges. And this level of connection occurred that I'd never felt before. We felt like we belonged to something. So we decided that we would keep this club going. We would invite our friends. And in a couple of months, this community that we had built as a group was filling up the loft. And it was clear to us that the values of what we were bringing to people through Medi Club could be shared with the rest of the city. So we created the Big Quiet as a way to celebrate a mass moment of quiet, meaningful conversation, and a celebration of the arts at iconic landmarks throughout the city. So over the past year and a half, we've done Big Quiets at places like Central Park, the old Domino Sugar Refinery, Lincoln Center, the Oculus World Trade Center, most recently at the 3,000-person United Palace in Harlem. It's been really cool to watch this grow fast. And in addition to these Big Quiets, we also have a program where we're training people to bring together small groups for meditation and safe space conversations in homes and office spaces throughout the city. So I've been asking myself recently, Why are people so hungry together, so hungry to come together? What is it that allows something like this to happen so fast? And I think that even as a troublemaking 8th grader, I knew deep down inside of me that what we crave most is human connection. And the reason why I wanted to tell you a little bit about my story and show you some of these images is because what I've seen is when we come together through a shared experience or through a shared interest or purpose, we create the permission for people to connect. And when that connection occurs, it can be anything from a cheeseburger to a group bike ride to thousands of strangers coming together to march in the name of equal rights on Washington or wherever. A lot of us did that. And when that happens, we start to feel like we belong to something. We start to feel supported. We feel heard. We feel seen. We feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves. And when that happens, we grow as individuals and as societies. And I've become really interested in that feeling. And the more I've looked into it, the more that I've seen that science actually shows that there's real benefit to humans coming together in this way. Group cooperation triggers oxytocin in the brain, which creates a feedback loop of feeling good, of well-being, of group loyalty. For people that are a part of faith-based communities that meet a minimum of 4 times a month, they're expected to live as much as 14 years longer than if they weren't a part of that community. And with religion, it's really interesting because that was a great way for people to access community and connection. For my generation, religion is losing relevancy fast. There's an interesting stat the Cassandra Report put out, 72% of millennials don't affiliate with religion. So there's this big void in regards to where we can go for that sense of community and support and connection. But it wasn't always like this. Before the agricultural revolution, for over 1 million years, our ancestors lived in tribal societies where we did everything together. We ate, we hunted, we raised kids, we shared goods. It's in our evolutionary blood to not only exist in community with other people, but to support one another, to look out for the greater good of our group, of our people. So there's a book that I've been really interested in recently. It's called Tribe, and it's by an author named Sebastian Junger. And in this book, Sebastian Junger talks about how today a person living in a modern city or a suburb can, for the first time in history, go an entire day, even an entire lifetime, mostly encountering complete strangers. They can be surrounded by other humans, but be deeply and dangerously alone. And there's something so poetically sad about this, that so many of us are alone together. So I've been really inspired by what's been happening here at the World Fair, learning about all these advancements in technology and science and medicine. And I'm very supportive of this, but I also want to point out that despite all of these advancements, we are witnessing higher levels of anxiety, depression, and chronic loneliness, more so than ever before in the history of humans. And research is showing that while we're more digitally connected than ever before, we are also lonelier than ever before. And there's a recent Forbes study that points out that the group of people that are loneliest right now in our country are those that are 35 and under, those of us that are the most socially connected. So when I look back on the past several years of my adult life, I noticed that the moments where I felt most alive, where I felt most committed to my truth, most eager to support other people, were the moments that I felt connected to community. And the moments where I felt most alone, most afraid, most lost, were the moments where I felt like I didn't belong to anything. So in the book Tribe that I mentioned before, the author speaks about something called self-determination theory. And the theory states that for human beings to feel content, they need 3 basic things. The first is to feel competent at what they do. The second is to feel authentic in their lives. And the third is to feel connected to other people. Now, these are intrinsic values to human happiness, and they far outweigh things like money and beauty and class, which we tend to put so much of our energy towards. But when we have those three basic intrinsic needs, what we see is that people are more inclined to take pro-social action. And a pro-social action is simply when a person does something for another person. And I feel like this is what the world needs right now. I sense that people are scrambling for this sense of deeper connection with themselves, deeper connection with other people. And my feeling is that so much of the fear and trauma that we're witnessing in our country and on a global level has to do with this disconnect between people, this disconnect between communities. So as I wrap up my talk, I want to point a little bit towards solutions and what I think we can do about it. My feeling is that the future of human connection is in this room. It's in our hands, and it's relatively simple. It starts with extending an invite to people that you know to come together. And it doesn't necessarily have to be political, although that's very important right now. It can be fun. I wanted to show a couple of quick examples of people that are doing this in New York and creating safe spaces for people to express themselves and feel that connection. Maybe it'll give some inspiration for some creation in this room. The first is the downtown basketball girls. They get together every Thursday night in Chinatown. Women can come together and shoot hoops. Lake, who's holding the ball, is 12 years old. This is a community called Fit the Description. They bring together people who have opposing views and have safe conversations to learn about each other. At this Fit the Description, which was last night, they brought in a black police officer to speak with black civilians about police brutality. Everyone was in attendance and able to ask questions and learn from each other in a safe environment. And lastly, these are the Nacho-holics. It's a group of different people that come together and make friends while they praise the nacho gods. I love these examples because anyone can do these. Some of them are more serious-hearted, some of them are light-hearted, but what they're doing is they're pushing human connection forward. Anyone can do it. You don't need startup capital. You don't need business acumen. All it takes is that initial drive to gather. My hope is that as more of us step up and take these little actions to bring people together, we can start to democratize human connection. And to me, the future of human connection ultimately is about restoring the experience of belonging to each other. This feels so lost. Martin Luther King's been coming up a lot lately, and I keep thinking about his notion of the beloved community, where society can celebrate our interdependence as one race. I know it's a tall order, but that vision, that great mission is so relevant right now. And what I love about that is it touches on something that feels so fundamental to the future of human connection, which is that what we can create together is so much better than what we can create as individuals on our own. So what I'll leave you with before we get into our meditation tonight or today is a simple premise, something I like to remind myself, and it's that life has meaning when we share it together. And I hope you guys will consider that. Thank you for listening.